Rural areas of Rwanda are the underprivileged part of the country in terms of access to judicial services. To empower rural citizens, Stradh, with the financial assistance of the British High Commission in Rwanda, conducted a fact-based research and for radio talk shows with Keti Radio. The majority of the interviewed people showed the limited knowledge about legal procedures as well as legal services. In the preparation of the emissions, 196 persons of both sexes aged over 18 from 25 districts of the country were interviewed. The general overview of the findings showed that there was among the population a big gap in knowing justice system and their rights in this sector. In the talk shows at Keti Radio, different relevant government officials and civil society were invited to talk about the judicial system. The Ministry of Justice, the Rwanda Investigation Bureau, the Access to Justice Bureau, commonly known as MAJ, and civil society have been part of the education-centered talk shows. In those emissions, the government officials accepted the existence of loopholes to be addressed to ensure access to equitable justice for all. During the interviews and talk shows, we came to know that people of rural areas had limited knowledge of legal procedure and judicial services. For instance, some didn't know the preliminary steps of the procedure like case filing, which automatically meant they knew few, even nothing about the rest of the procedure. We also noticed that some people lost their cases due to the lack of knowledge of the procedure or prefer be victim of justice. Others confuse the legal system with administrative one, as they say they can get their case to local authorities as ISIBO, which is the smallest administrative entity for serious crimes, the cell, the sector, and the district level, instead of submitting their case to Rwanda Investigation Bureau, which is the monopoly of investigation. The knowledge of judicial services in the system was so limited. People don't know clearly justice institution they can run to just in case they need to. Moreover, despite the fact that the government has put in place the Access to Justice Bureau known as MAJ to assist the most vulnerable people, but apart from being too far from them, people even didn't know the existence of these institutions. Those who at least knew their existence didn't know their mandate. In regard to legal representation, a remarkable number know the term lawyers, but a few know what they do and where to find them. In general, the research findings and the emissions show that despite the government effort to ensure access to justice, there is still a lack of knowledge of laws and procedure for filing case in court. Ignorance of the use of the judicial system known as IECMS add to the lack of means for assistance of lawyers or paying court fees. All this results in denial of justice, for example in cases related to expropriation, right to defense, family violence, rape, and so on. These contacts with the population and this broadcast in the field of access to justice have aroused growing interest on the part of the population, which unfortunately could not be satisfied in the space of 6 months. Hence, the wish of Stradh for such an activity is that it could last at least over a period of 2 years. Based on the gaps in justice sector, the government representatives in the talk shows made a commitment to address them, such as the Ministry of Justice committed to increase community outreach and decentralize the justice services like MAJ to the lowest level possible. The Ministry of Justice recognized the gap of the population of rural areas in the legal procedure and committed to increase mass awareness campaigns. The Ministry of Justice admit the gap in electronic system and commit to increase awareness and education for users. To ensure quality justice for all, Stradh recommends the government to reinforce awareness campaign on the topic of judicial procedure and legal services, especially targeting rural areas, illiterate, and old-aged people. Decentralize judicial services to help people easily access justice, including MAJ. Ensure sufficient internet in rural areas and improve internet literacy rate for internet literate society. Increase the awareness campaign on electronic system. Dispatch as many cyber cafes as possible to help the community easily access the internet and regulate the costs of case filing at the cyber cafes. Improve an easy legal aid program so that people, including vulnerable ones, can access them, and reduce the judiciary fees to adapt them to the financial capacity of all citizens, especially those with low incomes. Next is the recent omission amongst the four previous others.
KT Radio. Wherever you are, we got you covered. 96.7 FM in Kigali, 102 FM Eastern Province, 101.1 FM Northern Province, 103.3 FM Western Province, and 107.9 FM Southern Province.
This
is the program aimed at educating the public in general and rural community in particular. It is about the right process to file a criminal complaint and filing a case electronically. It was broadcast on November 27, 2022 on KT Radio, whose coverage is 90% of the national territory. After interviewing people from 6 districts since October 2022, backed with citizens from 27 districts interviewed last year about these issues, it was noticed that there are some who understand the way through which they file a complaint, but again, a disturbing number of others who do not understand the process, including local authorities. This gets some of the victims end up falling into injustice or else lose their cases while it shouldn't. But for these concerns, there is a chance in this program an MVT from the Ministry of Justice will explain the correct process to get justice.
KT Radio.
Let's start by filing a criminal complaint. Before filing a complaint, you first have to know the competent institution to which the complaint should be filed, depending on its nature. For example, if it is a civil or criminal complaint, so that you do not take it to the wrong place, which would result in either losing your rights or facing justice. From the point of view of filing a criminal complaint, most of the people we interviewed show limited knowledge about the correct procedures. In their opinion and experience, they are those who have been facing injustice due to the fact that they do not understand the path to justice, and others say that they do not know nothing about the said process. I live in Rutsiro district. When I was 17, a man of around 50 has left, impregnated me and escaped. Some years later, he came back to look for his child. He even doesn't provide child support for. I have sued him by filing the case from the village administration up to the sector. Due to a long time process up to the sector, he has already escaped. But in the meantime, the cell has held our hearing and ruled that he might provide the child support and register the child, and he escaped again until now. This process explained by the people is contrary to what the Ministry of Justice says. According to Nabahira Anastase, the Director General of Justice Sector Coordination in the Ministry of Justice.
Actually, the competent organ to handle the cases of this kind is the RIB, so they can proceed with investigation, make the dossier, qualify the crime, and handle the case to the prosecution and then to the court. But as you heard, our citizens get confused and handle serious cases to the nearest local authority, and they take responsibilities to handle them. For instance, I can give an example of the cases of a child defilement that are handled either on a local authority level.
After talking about filing a criminal complaint, let's move now on filing a claim electronically. Since 2016, the government of Rwanda, through the Ministry of Justice, has established a program to file complaint in the form of technology known as ICMS in order to provide quality justice to citizens. This system is praised for the remarkable contribution in justice sector, but on the other hand, there are some obstacles to use it based on the problem of low internet penetration in rural areas, low knowledge in technology, lack of technological tools such as smartphones, computers, problems of illiteracy, and so on. Therefore, filing a case electronically, something that it is just making a phone call to the authority.
Thank you so much for coming. I hope you are going to explain that for me, since I know nothing about that technology. This is my first time to hear that. I wonder, how can I file a case electronically? Is it calling or what? Tell me. I really don't know.
Hari ikintu cyo gutanga ikirego umuntu akoresheje ikoranabuhanga urabizi iki?
Ntabwo mbizi.
I don't know that things of electronic case filing. I only hear it on radio that when you want to file a case electronically, you make a phone call on 666 and tell that authority your problem. But I don't know whose number is that. That is all I know.
Ntabwo mbyibuka.
The government of Rwanda also recognizes the obstacles in the system and claims to keep doing everything possible to make it friendly, especially for those in rural areas, as Nabahir continues.
It is quite certain that we can't have equal capacity in terms of using technology. Within employees even, it has been a bit complicated in the first place. So it was necessary that all of the employees get trained, from lawyers, judges, bailiffs, and so on. But as the system is updated quite often, the users have to adapt to it. Therefore, it is necessary to train the users, like judges, lawyers, cyber cafe workers, and others about updated version of the system. But for the cyber cafe, the problem we face is that workers are not permanent there. Some are trained and after they leave. For bailiffs, the problem is that when you train them while there is no court decision to execute in the near future, they end up forgetting what they have acquired about the electronic system.
Apparently, the program like this are needed to keep educating the community about the legal process to establish an awakened community. Within the previous similar programs last year, the government representative admitted some challenges about the knowledge of the citizen in terms of access to justice. Thus, the government committed to increase mass awareness, decentralize to the lowest level the Access to Justice Bureau, commonly known as MAJ, just to mention few. The concerns from the audience engagement through phone calls have been given guidance by government officials, while other victims were put in touch with Stradh lawyers for advice and guidance. At the end of the program, Stradh wishes to have a legal literate community for a sustainable society.
Hari ibyaha bimwe rwose umuntu agomba guhita ajya muri RIB kugira ngo ibimenyetso bidasibangana.
KT Radio, wherever you are, we got you covered. 96.7 FM in Kigali, 102 FM Eastern Province, 101.1 FM Northern Province, 103.3 FM Western Province, and 107.9 FM Southern Province.